Hey guys, it's Tom Box. Welcome to MST.TV, and we're jumping back into the ruling segment. Did you guys miss me? I mean, last week the ban list came out, didn't really do very many videos because there's just so much going on. Gotta update all these deck profiles. No, there's not much to update. There's only like Ritual Beast and Necros as the two main updates. Aside from that. But anyways, this video we're gonna be going into the rulings of this time frame of the meta and things that people are misplaying a lot, and I want to make sure you guys aren't getting screwed over, because the last thing you want is to be bubbled out because someone argued against your ruling and the so-called judge in question decided to side with the other guy. So we're going to be looking into stuff from Eternity Code, and we're even going to look into the future of Toon Chaos and some of the more popular ruling interactions of this current format. So stick around. You guys don't want to misplay, you guys don't want to be misinformed, have those arguments with people. So here we go. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit subscribe, ding notification bell. Now if you guys make it to the end of this video, I promise you I will take off my hat and you guys can judge whether or not I am worthy of being a Yu-Gi-Oh character. But let's get into this one, starting off with the context question of, can Archnemeses Eschatos or Protos activate its effect and declare an attribute or type that does not exist on the field? Essentially, what it's asking is, can I lock my opponent out from special summoning a specific type or attribute until the end of their next turn? And the answer to that is no. To give us some context, we're going to need some card text, and we're going to use Eschatos as our context. So, cannot be normal summoned or set, must first be special summoned from your hand by banishing 3 monsters with different types from your graveyard or face up on the field. That only applies to your side of the field, of course, and you would switch this typing to attribute if you're going to go with Protos. And that cannot be destroyed by card effects. You can declare 1 monster type on the field, or attribute if it's Protos. Destroy all monsters on the field with that type, and also until the end of the next turn, neither player can special summon monsters with that type. You can only use this effect of Archnemeses Eschatos once per turn. So why can't I just declare rocks against my Adamantipator opponent and shut them out from summoning for the rest of their turn? Well, simply put, you have to be able to resolve both parts of the effects in order for you to even consider the activation. I know that it's the also conjunction. The also conjunction does not require the resolution of the first part for this particular second part to gain its effect. But note that it is talking about the resolution doesn't need to be successful. However, for it to activate, you have all the mandatory parts that still needs to be basically legal in order for you to even consider the activation. So you're not even allowed to declare the incorrect typing, because note that Eschatos and Protos, they both state that it has to destroy all monsters with the declared attribute or type. And if you're not doing any of that, remember, rule of thumb here is that you cannot activate a card effect that would do nothing. You can't just Dark Hole and Empty Vortex to throw Dark Hole into the graveyard. You can't use Lightning Vortex to discard a card without it actually nuking some monsters on the field. In this case, you can't declare a type on the field that wouldn't actually destroy anything on the field just to lock a type out, because they're both kind of mandatory. It doesn't say you can do something, it just says you have to. And to bring a future context into this, say Dragma Maximus. Dragma Maximus can't really activate if your opponent doesn't have, well, the minimum 2 cards in the extra deck for them to also send to the graveyard. If they can't send, you're not allowed to send either, because it doesn't say your opponent can send, it just says your opponent has to send. So that's why. So you can't just declare random attributes or types just to lock out your opponent with these particular cards. This is a problem because some people are playing it like a VFD, because that's how people described it initially in their first review of the card. So make sure we correct ourselves on that, and don't lose to people saying, I'm just declare rocks, you can't play Adamantipator players. No, I'm sorry, Adamantipator's are still kind of OP in their own sense. But if they do Nibiru you and you're able to drop the card, that's a different story, because now there is a rock on the field and you can shut them out. So there are still ways around that. Okay, for the common question of the day, this is, how do trap monsters work against Skill Drain in the context of Eldlich? Oh, I guess this is a good question. I mean, we haven't played with trap monsters for a very, very long time, until like Eldlich and Phantom Knights really came to light, and the Skill Drain isn't exactly as popular by now. Now, specifically in the context of Eldlich monsters, they are summoned out as normal monsters, and because they're normal monsters, they don't really have any effects, so Skill Drain doesn't really apply to them. And for the secondary effects of those trap monsters, when they get summoned out as a trap, What happens is that if there is a golden lord on the field, it of course gains additional effects, and the additional effect would be to pop cards, to banish cards out of the graveyard, and so on and so forth. Those are all considered as part of the trap effect. On the summon, if there's the golden lord, then they will also do the second part of the trap effect. And as a monster on the field, it just has a stat line and some I guess other information, and that's basically it. But this does not apply to all trap monsters. I don't want to make that misconception there. Some monsters are summoned out as effect monsters, like Zoma the Spirit. When you destroy this card by battle, of course you burn your opponent with a ton of damage. And then there's also like Cliff's End. Cliff's End, I believe that one is also a monster that is summoned out as an effect monster, and if it's special summoned out this way, it's treated as like 3 tributes or something like that. Like those ones, they are effect monsters, and after they get summoned out as an effect monster from their own trap effect, they also gain additional effects, and those are considered as their monster effects. Skill Drain on that case would probably apply onto those monsters, therefore they will lose their effect, but they would not turn them back into a trap. No, that effect is a different one. That's part of the trap effect. You would require Royal Decree to turn them back into a trap, pushing them back into the back row. Yeah, that's the more appropriate context. But if you guys want more about that, you can leave more questions about that down in the comment section below. And you know what? All you really have to do is carefully read the card and then read its monster effect after it gets summoned out to really identify whether or not it is a normal monster or an effect monster. Alright, next card we're going to go into Toon Chaos, and we're going to talk about my favorite card there, Chaos Space, which is the Rhoda for Chaos monsters. Jumping into the card text, it states, send 1 light or dark monsters from your hand to the graveyard. Add 1 light or dark monster that cannot be normal summoned or set from your deck to your hand with a level of 4 to 8. And with a different attribute than the monster that was sent. Okay, so with that being said, if you send light, you get a dark. You send a dark, you get a light. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 of your banished light or dark monsters that cannot be normal summoned or set, and place that monster to the bottom of the deck and then draw 1 card. You can only activate each of these effects once per turn, which is nice. That means you can use both in the same turn. So the question that most people ask about this card is that, can I bottom deck an extra deck monster to get the draw 1 effect? You know, you can maximize your drawing capacity if you're able to use like extra deck monster. What if you can't banish stuff? Okay, and the answer to that is yes, you can. Because consider this, the target for that requires that a monster that is banished that cannot be normal summon or set. So consider all extra deck monsters to have that condition. You are never going to normal summon or set an extra deck monster. It's just not going to happen. It's just part of their mechanics, so that is automatically included. The second part is that you have to be able to bottom deck it into the deck, then draw 1. The conjunction is then, therefore the first part must happen. If you're bottom decking into the deck, whenever it states something like that, it's part of the effect, and whenever it's part of the effect, it can go into the main deck or the extra deck. It does not specify that it has to go into the main deck, and therefore the extra deck also counts, and therefore you will be able to draw 1 card. If you want a precedent to that, there is one. It is called Salamangreat Jack Jaguar. Jack Jaguar putting an extra deck monster back into the extra deck, and then it will still special summon itself out. That's probably one of your best ones out there, and if you have any more questions about that, and that one says, and if you do. But again, and if you do, and then the similarities between the two is that both of them require part A to be successful before they're able to resolve part B of their effect. So there's that. It's just that the timing and the timeline is just a little bit different with the then and if you do. If you want to read up more on that, go read up on conjunctions in the Yu-Gi-Oh blogs. Okay, to close that up, we're going to talk about Token Collector. Since it's such a popular hand trap / graveyard recursion counterplay, we got to talk about this. And we'll talk about the meta applications, and we'll also talk about some of the rulings, some of the misplays that people have been performing with this card just because they can't maintain game state. I mean, it gets pretty exciting when a hand trap works, but don't overreach with your effect. So let's start with the card text. If a token is special summoned, except during damage up, special summon out this card from the graveyard or hand. Now graveyard, of course, the token must be summoned while it was already there, and if it's from hand, so you just drew into it, it would still work. You can only use this effect of Token Collector once per turn. Just remember, like the graveyard thing, a lot of people forget that it can summon out from the graveyard. So if someone's actually playing multiple copies of the Christian Cliffordbacks combo, then you're able to use one copy to shut them all out, which is why it's really good, and people would probably want to DG Crow this card. Now, if this card is special summon, which has a summon trigger, destroy all, basically as many tokens on the field as possible, and if you do gain 400 attack, that part of the effect is simultaneous and it's gain, and it's also mandatory. And if this card gets ogred, it'll still destroy all of the tokens on the field because it still has to resolve as much as possible. And neither player can special summon out tokens. Okay, so neither player can special summon out tokens. That's a continuous effect that locks tokens out, and there's many applications. Why is this card so popular? O-Lion combos, your Christian Cliffordbacks, Link Cross, Auroradon. It's just a turn skip when it gets to those parts of the combo, especially Auroradon being the most devastating one. If someone goes into Auroradon, you drop a token collector, and while they don't have any form of negation, you will blow up all the tokens. In other words, all those tokens typically go into some sort of synchro play. But remember, once you summon out Auroradon, you're not allowed to link summon for the rest of the turn. Therefore, you blowing up all the tokens takes away all the resources that they have, and now they have an Auroradon, a 2100 or 2300 Auroradon that doesn't really have any quick effects. So board state is much weaker, and it's not likely they can attribute their own Auroradon to pop your token collector because it's just not worth it. Or is it? It might be worth it for them to actually do it if they're holding a Nibiru. And speaking of Nibiru, are you allowed to use Nibiru while token collector is on the field? And the answer to that is obviously no, you cannot, because under the similar conditions to Winda, Winda does not allow a Nibiru to activate because it requires the summoning of both the Nibiru and the token. Since you can't summon out the token, Nibiru can activate, and the token basically is mandatory, so it's just not allowed. It's just the same condition where you cannot special summon out the token, you can't get both parts of the effect, can't get the whole effect, you can't activate. It's that. And that's why some people actually forget that, and they tribute off the token collector, and the Nibiru gets dropped, and they thought that was a counterplay, but that is actually not a counterplay. That's just you not maintaining the game state, and you deserve a warning for that. I think it's 100% repairable, of course, but you just revealed that you have a Nibiru to your opponent, so that's unfortunate. And that's another pretty big thing. And I think that's more or less all I really want to talk about in terms of token collector. Just remember, summon out from the graveyard. It is a trigger-based effect. It has a mandatory effect. And speaking of that mandatory effect, I guess to kind of cover that a little bit more, it can be negated. If you're able to successfully negate it with, say, an Imperm, Chalice, or whatever monster effect that you have available to negate the activation or the effect of the destruction of all your tokens, it's likely that you're going to be able to keep most of your tokens and you can still use them. Just remember, it's not all powerful. It's not that it summons out and destroys. It's not part of the same effect. It's not like Nibiru, which it tributes out. I know a lot of people treat modern Yu-Gi-Oh cards as like these overpowered cards that do multiple things in the one fell swoop, but this one has multiple steps to it, and that's the best way to counterplay against it, when you're able to pick it apart and tackle very specific parts of it that are actually affecting you. And Token Collector is a clear example of one of those opportunities. So just keep that in mind. It is a powerful card. I'm not saying it's weak by any sense, but it does have an opportunity for counter play. Yeah. All right, guys. And that's all I got for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, learned something or two about upcoming card effects or the ones that people aren't playing properly right now, well, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you guys hit subscribe, ding notification bell so you can stay up to date with MST.TV. Got some deck. I actually got a deck profile coming up for you guys, and I'm going to be working on some remote duel stuff as I guess it was kind of like a requested thing. So I am going to be moving forward with that. And as promised, I said I was going to take off my hat at the end of this video. Oh my god, I hope my hair isn't like super gross. Do you think this is fit to be a Yu-Gi-Oh character? Is this main character material? You guys leave it down in the comment section, or any other rulings that you might have. Holy crap, my hair is long. Well, this is what I get. Anyways, I guess I'll see you guys in the next one.